In the early 1800s, the Cherokee Nation had a higher literacy rate than the United States and basically every country in Europe. In fact, they had one of the highest literacy rates of any sovereign state in the world at that time. And yes, they were a sovereign state. The US Supreme Court actually affirmed this in 1832. And what's even crazier is that only about a decade before this high literacy rate, they didn't even have a writing system. Starting in 1808, their writing system was developed by an illiterate Cherokee silversmith named Sequoyah. The trees are named after him, by the way, not the other way around. Around that time, he had fought in a battle with US soldiers and noticed that they had been communicating through paper. Actually, he referred to this as talking leaves. And the crucial thing here is that he had no idea how this worked. And he couldn't even ask them how it worked because he didn't know English. But he very quickly made the intellectual leap that this was the technology that his people needed. And so for the next 10 years, he speedrun to the invention of writing. He started out as all writing systems do with a logographic system. So kind of like Chinese today, every word or word part was represented by a specific symbol. And this conveyed the meaning, not the sound. But eventually he decided it would be better to just represent the sounds of Cherokee, which is another insane intellectual leap if you've literally never learned writing. Since the Cherokee language only had about 85 unique syllables, he decided to give each one their own character. And he borrowed the shapes for these characters from other writing systems that he'd witnessed, like the Latin or Cyrillic script. But again, he didn't know how those writing systems worked, so he gave those symbols entirely new phonetic values. So for instance, this looks like a G, but it's actually pronounced as wa. It took him a little bit to convince the Cherokee government to use the writing system, but once he did, it spread like wildfire. It was so easy to learn that within a year, over 1,000 people were able to read and write in Cherokee using the script. And within a decade, it was used to write Cherokee newspapers and the Cherokee Constitution. This is at a time when the Cherokee Nation was rapidly modernizing and industrializing. They were essentially an independent country within the state of Georgia with their own government, writing system, and booming economy. But then through the combination of a bogus treaty that was not ratified by the Cherokee government, the US president straight up ignoring the Supreme Court, and one of the most shameful acts of US history, the Cherokee dream was destroyed. The majority of their population was removed from their land during the Indian Removal Act, with a fourth of the population dying in the process. And over the last 2 centuries, the language has suffered a lot and has been classified as critically endangered. However, within the last decade, there have been impressive efforts to revive the language through immersion schools using that same syllabary that was invented by Sequoyah over 200 years ago.